The message landed on my phone at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was knee-deep in quarterly reports, the kind that make your eyes glaze over, when Chloe's name lit up the screen. Don't come to Helen's retirement party. She doesn't want you there. Beneath her message, I saw the small heart reaction from Gary. He'd actually taken the time to like it. My hands stayed steady as I reread the words, letting them sink in. 28 years of being the family disappointment prepares you for moments like this. Still, I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting. The venue contract sat in my email, paid in full 3 months ago. The Grandview Terrace, complete with catering for 150 guests, a premium bar package, and the live jazz band Helen had always dreamed of. $14,000, all from my account. I typed back 4 words, cool. I'll stop paying. Then I forwarded the cancellation request to the venue coordinator, copied my credit card company, and went right back to my reports. My phone started ringing within minutes. I let it go to voicemail. Chloe called 6 times in the first hour. Helen managed 8 attempts. Gary, surprisingly, only tried twice before giving up. My years in corporate law taught me, leverage has a funny way of showing up when you least expect it. For years, my family had treated my financial success as something vaguely embarrassing, like I'd just stumbled into money by accident instead of earning it through brutal 100-hour work weeks and sacrificing any semblance of a personal life. They'd made their feelings perfectly clear when I bought my downtown condo, when I started vacationing internationally, when I declined every random family gathering because, professional obligations. This retirement party had been Helen's obsession for 6 months. She'd taught at Evergreen High for 33 years, teaching American literature to generations of teenagers who barely remembered her name after graduation. The party was her grand finale, her moment to be celebrated. I'd offered to host the entire thing, not because I expected gratitude, but because despite everything, she was still my mother. The venue manager had been thrilled with the booking, especially when I upgraded every available option. Premium floral arrangements, a professional photographer, a custom retirement video presentation, a champagne toast with the expensive bottles. Chloe's follow-up texts flooded in around 6 p.m. You can't just cancel everything. This is Mom's special day. Stop being so selfish. I poured myself a glass of wine and settled onto my balcony. The city lights began to flicker on as evening approached. The temperature had dropped to something almost pleasant for August. My phone continued its angry buzzing against the glass table. Our family dynamics had solidified years ago into this suffocating, predictable pattern. Chloe was the golden child, married to her high school sweetheart Liam, mother to 3 picture-perfect kids, living in the same neighborhood where we'd grown up. She taught part-time at a local elementary school and spent her free time organizing PTA events and coaching youth soccer. And me? I was the one who'd left. Full scholarship to Georgetown Law, summer associate at a Boston firm, eventually making partner before 35. My success confused them more than it impressed them. Helen had wanted me to teach, like her. Gary had assumed I'd marry someone local and settle down. Neither could quite process that I'd built a life they didn't recognize. The doorbell rang at 6:45 p.m. I checked the camera feed, Chloe, standing there, with Liam hovering behind her, their youngest daughter perched on his hip. I considered ignoring them, but curiosity got the better of me. We need to talk, Chloe announced the moment I opened the door. No, we really don't, I said, leaning against the doorframe, blocking entry. You're ruining everything. Her voice climbed towards shrill. Mom is devastated. The venue called her directly when they got your cancellation. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? Probably about as humiliating as being uninvited to my own mother's retirement party via text message, I replied, keeping my tone level, almost pleasant. Years of depositions had perfected my ability to remain calm while dismantling someone's argument. Liam shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we could all just take a breath here? Stay out of this. Chloe snapped at him before turning back to me. You know how Mom gets. She's stressed about the party. And you two have been fighting for months. We haven't been fighting, I corrected her. I've been living my life while she criticizes every choice I make. The wine had loosened my tongue just enough to speak the truth plainly. But that's beside the point. She made it clear I'm not welcome. I'm simply honoring that request and withdrawing my financial support. Chloe's face flushed crimson. It's not about the money. Then I'm sure you'll have no trouble finding another venue and paying for it yourself. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Liam bounced their daughter, who started fussing. Chloe's mouth opened and closed several times before she managed to speak again. We can't afford what you booked. That sounds like a problem you should take up with Mom. I started to close the door. Wait! Chloe's hand shot out to stop it. Please. Can we just come inside and discuss this rationally? Against my better judgment, I let them in. Liam immediately migrated toward the living room windows, making impressed noises about the view. Chloe paced my kitchen, her shoes clicking anxiously against the marble floor. Mom didn't mean it, she began. She absolutely meant it, I countered, and Gary co-signed it by liking your message. I refilled my wine glass, deliberately not offering them anything. For once in my life, I'm taking their words at face value. Chloe stopped pacing. You've always been dramatic. I've always been honest. There's a difference. The wine was excellent, a Burgundy I picked up during a Rome trip last spring. You want to know what's actually dramatic? Planning an elaborate retirement party while simultaneously telling one of your daughters she's unwelcome. She's been planning this for months with my money. Using the venue I researched, booked, and paid for in full. I set my glass down carefully. Did you think I wouldn't notice the part where I'm funding my own exclusion? Liam finally spoke up from his position by the window. Your mom was really counting on this party being perfect. Then she shouldn't have uninvited the person financing it, I met his eyes directly. Seems straightforward to me. Chloe's voice turned pleading. Can't you just apologize and move past this? Apologize for what, exactly? It came out sharper than intended. For having a career? For not living within 10 miles of my childhood home? For existing in a way that makes her uncomfortable? You don't make time for family. I make time for people who want me around. Big difference. The conversation spiraled through familiar territory. Chloe insisted I was overreacting. I pointed out specific instances of being excluded or criticized over the past 5 years. Liam tried to play mediator while clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Their daughter started crying, which gave them a convenient excuse to leave. Just think about it, Chloe said from the doorway. Please. I closed the door behind them without answering. The calls continued throughout the week. Helen left voicemails that alternated between angry accusations and tearful guilt trips. Gary texted sporadically, his messages containing minimal words and maximum judgment. Chloe tried everything from sweet-talking to outright threats. Wednesday brought an unexpected development. My assistant, Sarah, knocked on my office door around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, her expression uncertain. There's a woman here to see you, she said. Says she's your mother's friend from the school district. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's insisting it's important. I glanced at my calendar, mentally calculating whether I had time for whatever this was. Send her in. The woman who entered looked to be in her early 60s, professionally dressed in a burgundy pantsuit that had seen better days. She introduced herself as Eleanor Vance, the assistant principal at Evergreen High. I hope I'm not overstepping, she began, settling into the chair across from my desk. But your mother mentioned you might be able to help with a legal matter. My eyebrows rose. My mother sent you here? Not exactly. She mentioned during a staff meeting that her daughter was a lawyer downtown, and I took the liberty of looking you up. Eleanor pulled a folder from her bag. The school district is eliminating several retirement benefits that were promised to long-time employees. Your mother stands to lose about 30% of her pension. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. And she didn't mention this to me because... pride, probably. You know how Helen is. Eleanor slid the folder across my desk. I'm here because watching the district cheat people who've given decades of service makes me furious. Your mother deserves better. I spent the next 40 minutes reviewing documents that outlined a systematic dismantling of retirement promises made to teachers who'd started before 2005. The legal language was deliberately obtuse, buried in amended union contracts and board resolutions that most teachers wouldn't understand without help. This is actionable, I said finally. They're violating contractual obligations under state employment law. But litigation would take months, possibly years. Eleanor's face fell. So there's nothing we can do? I didn't say that. My mind was already working through strategy. How many teachers are affected? 47 in your mother's situation. Another 63 facing reduced healthcare coverage. I did quick math in my head. A class action suit would get attention fast, especially with retirement-age teachers as plaintiffs. The optics alone would force the district to negotiate. I'll need to talk to my partners about taking this pro bono. Employment law isn't my primary focus, but we have people who specialize in this. Eleanor's eyes brightened. You'd do that? For the teachers being cheated? Absolutely. For my mother specifically? I paused, choosing words carefully. That's more complicated. She talks about you sometimes, Eleanor said quietly. Always with this tone of confusion, like she can't quite figure out how you ended up where you are. But there's pride underneath it. She just doesn't know how to express it. The observation stung more than I expected. Did she ask you to tell me that? She doesn't know I'm here. Eleanor gathered her folder. I took a chance coming to you because you're the best hope these teachers have. The district is counting on people not fighting back. After she left, I sat staring at the documents for a long time. The timing was almost laughably ironic. Helen was fighting to keep me away from her retirement party while simultaneously being screwed out of the retirement she'd earned. Part of me wanted to let her figure it out herself, to let the consequences of her choices play out naturally. But 47 other teachers didn't deserve to suffer because of family drama. I scheduled a meeting with our employment law partners for the next morning. By Thursday afternoon, we had a preliminary strategy mapped out. One of the senior partners, Michael Lee, agreed to take lead on the case with me supporting on contract review and negotiations. I called Helen that evening. She answered on the first ring, hope evident in her voice. Have you reconsidered about the venue? This isn't about the party, I said. Eleanor Vance came to see me yesterday. I heard her sharp intake of breath. Why didn't you tell me the district was cutting your pension? The silence stretched long enough that I checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. I didn't want to burden you, she said finally. Burden me? Helen, this is literally what I do for a living. I could have been helping you weeks ago. You're always so busy with important cases. My little retirement problem didn't seem worth your time. The words landed like physical blows. My little retirement problem was the exact kind of employment violation that made my blood boil. That she'd assumed I wouldn't care enough to help stung in ways I couldn't quite articulate. I'm taking your case. Well, Michael Lee is taking lead, but I'm involved. We're filing a class action suit against the district next week. I kept my voice professionally neutral. You'll need to sign some paperwork and be available for depositions. You're doing this, even after everything with the party? This isn't about the party. This is about the district violating contractual obligations to 110 teachers who gave their careers to public education. You're one of many who deserve better. Helen started crying, soft sounds that she tried to muffle. Thank you. Thank Michael when you meet him. He's the real expert here. I ended the call before the conversation could veer into emotional territory I wasn't ready to navigate. The lawsuit hit the local news by Friday morning. Evergreen High teachers file class action against district pension cuts, the headline read. My phone exploded with messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years, suddenly interested in my legal career now that it benefited someone they knew. Chloe called 7 times before I finally answered during my lunch break. Everyone's talking about the lawsuit, she said without preamble. Aunt Carol called me. All the cousins are texting. Even Gary's sister reached out. Good. Public pressure will help force a settlement. Mom's crying happy tears for the first time in weeks. She keeps telling everyone her daughter is saving her retirement. Chloe's voice carried a note I couldn't quite identify. I didn't know you could do something like this. I'm a corporate attorney who specializes in contract negotiation and litigation. This is exactly what I do, but for free, for a bunch of teachers. The question revealed more about Chloe's worldview than she intended. Some things matter more than billable hours. These teachers were lied to and cheated. That's not okay. You're still upset about the party, though. I set down my sandwich, appetite fading. The party and the lawsuit are separate issues. Don't conflate them. But if you're helping Mom with something this huge, can't you just let the other thing go? No. The word came out harder than intended. Helping her with a legitimate legal problem doesn't erase being uninvited from her retirement celebration. Those are completely different situations. Chloe huffed in frustration. You're being stubborn. I'm being consistent. There's a difference. She hung up without saying goodbye, which seemed to be becoming a pattern. I finished my lunch and returned to reviewing deposition prep for the pension case. Michael had assembled a strong team, and the district's lawyers were already making noises about settlement discussions. By the following Monday, 3 local news stations had picked up the story. The image of retirement-age teachers potentially losing benefits they'd earned over decades made for compelling television. One station interviewed Helen on her front steps, and I watched the footage with detached professional interest. My daughter is fighting for all of us, she told the reporter, her voice steady despite obvious emotion. I'm so proud of what she's doing. The words I'd wanted to hear for years, delivered to a news camera instead of to me directly. The irony wasn't lost on me. The venue coordinator emailed Tuesday morning with a gentle reminder that they still needed confirmation by end of week. I archived the message without responding. Helen had the leverage now. I was helping save her pension, she could use that goodwill to restore the venue herself if she wanted it badly enough. Wednesday evening brought another unexpected visitor. I opened my door to find Gary standing there, looking uncomfortable in khaki pants and a polo shirt that might have been new. Can we talk? He asked. I let him in, curious despite myself. Gary and I had never been particularly close. He was a man of few words who expressed affection through practical actions rather than emotional conversations. Having him show up at my condo unannounced was unprecedented. He settled into my living room chair with the careful movements of someone unused to the modern furniture aesthetic. His eyes traveled around the space, taking in details he'd never bothered to notice before. Your mother showed me the news coverage, he began. About the lawsuit. It's going well. The district is scrambling to contain the PR damage. That's not why I'm here. He cleared his throat awkwardly. I liked Chloe's message about the party. I know. I saw. I shouldn't have done that. The admission came out rough, like the words physically hurt. Your mother was upset, and Chloe was trying to fix it, and I just went along without thinking about what it meant. I waited, giving him space to continue. You've always been the one who didn't need us, he said finally. From the time you were little, you just figured things out on your own. Got yourself through school, got into that fancy college, built this whole life we don't really understand. We got used to you not needing anything from us. Not needing and not wanting are different things. I kept my voice level. I didn't need financial help or guidance, but I wanted to be included. To be treated like I mattered as much as Chloe. Gary nodded slowly. I can see that now. Watching you fight for your mother's pension when she just pushed you away? That showed me something I should have seen years ago. What's that? That you care about family even when family doesn't make it easy. That you're loyal even when it costs you something. He met my eyes directly. Chloe would never have taken on 110 teachers' worth of legal work without getting paid. She would have told your mother to hire a lawyer and figure it out herself. The observation startled me with its accuracy. Chloe's worldview centered on transactions. You got what you paid for, and free help was for people too incompetent to solve their own problems. I did it because it was right, not because it was Helen, I clarified. The teachers deserved representation. But you could have said no. Sent your mother to some other firm. Instead, you brought in your partners and took it on yourself. Gary leaned forward, elbows on his knees. That's character. That's who you are, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. We talked for another hour, the longest conversation we'd had in probably a decade. He asked about my work, actually listening to the answers instead of glazing over like usual. I asked about his golf league and his volunteer work at the community center. We found common ground in unexpected places. Both of us were reading the same thriller series. Both preferred old Western movies to modern action films. As he was leaving, he paused at the door. I'll talk to your mother about the party, he said. About making sure you're not just invited, but welcomed the way you should have been from the start. Thanks, Gary. After he left, I poured a generous glass of wine and called my best friend from law school, Jessica, who now practiced in Denver. You sound weird, she said immediately. What happened? I filled her in on the whole saga, the initial uninvite, the venue cancellation, the pension lawsuit, Gary's unexpected visit. Jessica listened without interrupting, a skill honed through years of appellate work. So, your family is finally realizing you're an actual person with feelings, she summarized when I finished. Only took them 3 decades. Gary seemed genuinely sorry. He should be. They all should be. I heard her moving around, probably cooking dinner while we talked. But here's my question, are you going to let them off the hook? What do you mean? I mean, your dad apologized, which is great, but words are easy. Is anything actually going to change? Are they going to treat you differently, or will this just be a temporary guilt response before everything slides back to normal? The question hit home harder than comfortable. I don't know. Then I'd suggest making your expectations crystal clear. You already did it with the venue situation. Don't let them backslide into old patterns just because they're being nice right now. We talked for another 30 minutes before I let her get back to her evening. Her words stayed with me, though. Setting boundaries once didn't mean the work was finished. Maintaining them required constant vigilance and a willingness to enforce consequences. Friday evening, I got a call from Aunt Carol, Helen's older sister. We'd always gotten along reasonably well, probably because she'd moved to Florida 15 years ago and only visited occasionally. Your mother is beside herself, she informed me without preamble. Hello to you too, Aunt Carol. Don't be cute. This party means everything to her. I transferred the call to speaker and continued preparing dinner. Then she shouldn't have uninvited me. She didn't mean it that way. How many ways can you interpret "don't come to the party"? I chopped vegetables with perhaps more force than necessary. Because I'm only seeing one meaning. Aunt Carol sighed heavily. You know your mother. She says things when she's upset. And I'm supposed to fund her events regardless? Interesting take. The venue needs confirmation by Monday or they're releasing the date. Sounds like Mom better start making alternate arrangements. I scraped the vegetables into a hot pan, enjoying the sizzle. You're really going to let 33 years of her teaching career end without a proper celebration? I'm really going to stop paying for parties I'm not invited to. What she does next is entirely up to her. Aunt Carol tried several more angles before admitting defeat. I finished cooking, ate dinner on my balcony, and tried to enjoy the unusually cool evening. Guilt gnawed at my edges, but I'd spent too many years being the family doormat to back down now. Saturday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I opened my door to find Helen standing there, her face carefully composed, but her hands twisting her purse strap nervously. "May I come in?" I stepped aside silently. She'd never visited my condo before, despite multiple invitations over the years. Her eyes swept the space with obvious disapproval, though she tried to hide it. "This is very modern," she said finally. "Thank you." I didn't offer coffee or small talk. "Did Chloe send you?" "Nobody sent me. I came on my own." She perched on the edge of my sofa like she might flee at any moment. "The venue called again yesterday. They need final confirmation. Then you should probably confirm or cancel, depending on what you've decided." Helen's composure cracked slightly. "How am I supposed to afford all of this?" "The same way everyone else does. You save money, adjust expectations, or find alternatives." I remained standing, arms crossed. What you don't do is expect someone you've uninvited to continue financing your event. Chloe shouldn't have sent that message. But she did, and you agreed with it. I never said I agreed. Gary liked the message. You called 8 times afterward, but never once said Chloe was wrong. I walked to the kitchen, needing distance. Your silence was agreement enough. Helen followed me, her voice rising. You don't understand the pressure I've been under, planning this party, finishing the school year, dealing with retirement paperwork. Chloe was trying to help by managing the guest list. By removing me from it, I finished. Helen's hands fluttered helplessly. You and I have been arguing so much lately. We argue because you can't accept my life choices. That's not the same thing as me causing problems. I leaned against the counter, maintaining physical distance. But regardless of our disagreements, I'm still your daughter. Did you really think uninviting me was acceptable? Helen's eyes filled with tears, though I couldn't tell if they were genuine or tactical. I want you at the party. You have a fascinating way of showing it. Chloe made a mistake. Can't you forgive her? This isn't about forgiving Chloe. It's about recognizing a pattern that's been going on for years. The words came easier now, fueled by wine-free clarity and accumulated frustration. You minimize my career. You criticize my choices. You make it clear that the life I've built doesn't meet your expectations. And then you want me to smile and pay for the privilege of being tolerated. That's not fair, is it? When was the last time you asked about my work without making a comment about how I should have been a teacher instead? When did you last visit me here without Chloe as a buffer? When have you ever celebrated my success instead of treating it like something vaguely shameful? Helen sat down heavily on one of my bar stools. I'm proud of you. You've never said that before. I'm saying it now. We stared at each other across my kitchen island. Outside, the city hummed with its usual weekend energy. Inside, 30-some years of unspoken resentments filled the space between us. I'll make you a deal, I said finally. I'll restore the venue booking and pay for everything as originally planned. But you're going to stand up at that party and introduce me properly. Not as Chloe's sister who lives downtown. As your daughter who built a successful law career. You're going to say you're proud of me and you're going to mean it. Helen's face cycled through several emotions before settling on something resembling acceptance. That's all you want? That's everything I want. Public acknowledgement that I matter to you as much as Chloe does. That my path was different but equally valid. I met her eyes directly. Can you do that? She nodded slowly. Yes, I can do that. And no more comments about how I should settle down or move closer to home or choose a different career. What I've built is enough. All right. I picked up my phone and sent a message to the venue coordinator requesting they disregard the cancellation. Helen watched silently, relief washing over her features as I confirmed the original booking remained intact. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. Just keep your word. She left shortly after, promising to text Chloe and Gary with the update. I returned to my balcony with fresh coffee, feeling emotionally wrung out, but oddly satisfied. Setting boundaries had never been my strong suit with family, but something about hitting 35 had crystallized my unwillingness to accept less than basic respect. The party happened 3 weeks later. True to her word, Helen introduced me during her speech, calling out my law partnership and saying she was proud of the woman I'd become. Chloe looked mildly annoyed, but kept her mouth shut. Gary actually hugged me, which was awkward, but seemingly genuine. The venue looked exactly as I'd envisioned when I booked it months ago. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in ivory linens, centerpieces featuring Helen's favorite white roses mixed with deep purple irises. The jazz quartet played softly near the bar, their music sophisticated without being intrusive. 147 guests had confirmed attendance, filling the space with conversation and laughter. I arrived fashionably late, making an entrance in a navy dress that had cost more than Chloe probably spent on clothes in 6 months. Several of Helen's teacher friends recognized me from the news coverage, approaching with genuine gratitude for the pension lawsuit. You saved my retirement, one woman told me, gripping my hand with surprising strength. 29 years I gave that district, and they were going to cut my benefits by 40%. I can't thank you enough. Michael Lee deserves most of the credit, I deflected, though the warmth in her eyes made something in my chest loosen. Helen found me near the appetizer table about 20 minutes after I arrived. She looked elegant in a charcoal gray dress, her hair styled in soft waves that took years off her appearance. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Decades of complicated history hanging between us. You came, she said finally. You paid for the venue to remain booked. Seemed silly to waste my money. The words came out lighter than intended, almost teasing. She smiled, tentative, but real. Can we start over? Not forget everything, but maybe move forward differently? Maybe. If you're serious about changing how you see my life. I'm trying. Your father and I both are. She glanced across the room where Gary stood. Talking with some relatives. Watching you take on the school district showed us things we should have recognized long ago. Before I could respond, the event coordinator signaled that dinner was ready. Helen squeezed my arm gently before moving to take her place at the head table. I found my assigned seat, notably at the family table this time, not relegated to some distant corner with strangers. Chloe sat 2 chairs down, her husband Liam attempting conversation with an uncle who couldn't hear well. She acknowledged me with a tight nod, but didn't speak. The tension between us had calcified into something cold and permanent, though neither of us seemed willing to address it directly. Dinner passed in waves of conversation and courses. The catering company had executed everything perfectly. Mixed green salads with candied pecans, perfectly seared salmon with lemon butter, roasted vegetables that actually had flavor. I'd upgraded to the premium wine selection, and several guests commented appreciatively on the quality. Helen's speech came between the main course and dessert. She stood at the microphone, composed and confident in a way I'd rarely seen outside her classroom. She talked about her 3 decades of teaching, the students who'd surprised her, the colleagues who'd become family. Then her eyes found mine across the room. My daughter is here tonight, and I need to say something I should have said years ago. Her voice caught slightly. I didn't always understand her choices. She went to schools I'd never heard of, built a career in a world I didn't recognize, created a life that looked nothing like what I'd imagined for her. And instead of celebrating that independence and success, I let my confusion turn into criticism. The room went silent. Everyone focused on Helen's words. My throat tightened. 3 weeks ago, she took on a class action lawsuit to save my pension and the pensions of 46 other teachers. She did this for free, bringing in her partners and her expertise, fighting for people the system tried to cheat. She did this even though I'd recently hurt her deeply, even though I'd given her every reason to walk away and let us figure it out ourselves. Chloe shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Liam stared at his plate. That's who my daughter is. Someone who does what's right, even when it costs her something. Someone who built herself into exactly who she wanted to be, despite having parents too short-sighted to see how remarkable that journey was. Helen's eyes were wet now, but her voice stayed strong. I'm proud of her. I'm proud of the lawyer she became, the woman she is, the life she's created on her own terms. And I'm sorry it took me this long to say it out loud. The applause started slowly, then built into something sustained and genuine. I blinked rapidly, refusing to cry in front of 147 people, but the effort was only partially successful. Across the room, Aunt Carol gave me a knowing smile. Gary raised his wineglass in a private toast. Helen returned to her seat to congratulations and hugs from nearby guests. The jazz quartet started playing again, and conversation resumed its normal volume. I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment to process what had just happened. The bathroom was a blessing. I stared at my reflection, fixing minor makeup smudges while trying to untangle the knot of emotions in my chest. The speech was everything I'd asked for, and more. Helen had publicly acknowledged my worth in terms that went beyond the surface-level praise I demanded. But speeches were easy. Beautiful words delivered to an audience cost nothing beyond temporary vulnerability. The real question was whether anything would actually change after tonight, or if this was just a performance designed to absolve guilt. I returned to the party to find dessert being served. Individual chocolate lava cakes with raspberry coulis, another upgrade I'd insisted on. Chloe caught my eye as I sat down, her expression unreadable. That was quite a speech, she said quietly. It was. Helen's never talked about me like that. Not publicly. Something flickered across her face. Hurt? Resentment? Maybe both. Maybe because you've never had to fight for recognition the way I have. The observation came out sharper than intended. Chloe's jaw tightened. You think being the favorite is easy? You're not the favorite. You're the one who makes Helen feel successful because you chose the life she understands. There's a difference. And you're the one who makes her feel inadequate because everything you do is beyond her comprehension. Chloe leaned closer, voice dropping. You want to know why she criticizes you? Because looking at your life makes her question her own choices. Every time you buy another expensive condo, or vacation in Europe, or win another big case, she sees everything she didn't do, everything she gave up by staying and teaching. The insight caught me off guard. I'd never considered that Helen's criticism might stem from her own regrets rather than genuine disapproval of my choices. That's not my fault, I said finally. No, but it explains things. Chloe picked at her dessert. I'm not saying what she did was right, or that Gary and I handled the party invitation correctly, but maybe understanding where it comes from helps. We lapsed into silence, both working through implications we'd never bothered to examine before. Liam returned with fresh drinks, oblivious to the conversation he'd missed. The party continued around us, people dancing now, the jazz quartet picking up tempo, Helen making rounds to thank guests for coming. Later that night, after most guests had departed and cleanup crews were breaking down tables, Helen found me on the venue's outdoor terrace. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and the temperature had dropped to something almost comfortable. Thank you for restoring the booking, she said, joining me at the railing. Everything was perfect. That was the plan from the beginning. I know. And I nearly ruined it by letting fear and stupidity dictate my actions. She turned to face me fully. I meant what I said in the speech. Every word. Words are a start. But I need to see follow-through. I met her eyes directly. No more comments about my career choices. No more suggestions that I should move closer or settle down. No more treating my life like something that needs fixing. Agreed. Though I might slip up occasionally. Old habits and all. Slipping up is different from deliberately undermining. I can handle occasional mistakes if I know the overall intention has changed. I paused, considering my next words carefully. And I need you to include me in family things without making it contingent on my availability or Chloe's approval. I'm your daughter, too. You are. You always have been, even when I did a terrible job of showing it. We stood together in silence for a few minutes, watching the city lights and listening to muffled party sounds from inside. The moment felt fragile, like pressing too hard might shatter whatever understanding we'd reached. The pension lawsuit settles next week, I told her. The district is offering full restoration of promised benefits plus compensation for emotional distress. Every teacher in the class will get what they were owed. Helen's hand found mine. On the railing, squeezing gently. You gave me my retirement back. Both the financial security and this celebration. I don't know how to thank you. Keep your promises about how you treat me. That's thanks enough. The following weeks brought gradual changes in family dynamics. Helen called occasionally just to chat, asking about cases I was working on without the usual commentary about alternative career paths. Gary started texting random thoughts or articles he thought I'd find interesting, awkward attempts at connection that I genuinely appreciated. Chloe maintained her cool distance, though the hostility had softened into something more like cautious neutrality. We were never going to be close. Our worldviews diverged too fundamentally. But the active antagonism seemed to have faded. The pension lawsuit settled exactly as predicted. Each teacher received full benefit restoration, 3 years of back pay for what had been illegally reduced, and a formal apology from the district. Local news covered the settlement with the same enthusiasm they brought to the initial filing. Helen sent me flowers the day the settlement was announced, a massive arrangement of white roses and purple irises that barely fit on my assistant Sarah's desk. The card read simply, "Thank you for fighting for us. Love, Mom." I kept the card in my desk drawer, a tangible reminder that people could change if they wanted to badly enough. That boundaries enforced with consequences could reshape relationships into something healthier. That sometimes the best revenge wasn't revenge at all, but rather the simple act of demanding respect and refusing to accept anything less. I stayed for 2 hours, made polite conversation with Helen's teacher friends, and left before the evening turned maudlin. The next morning, I received a text from Helen thanking me again and suggesting lunch the following week. Just the two of us, no Chloe as mediator. Small steps, but progress nonetheless. A month later, Chloe called to complain that Helen now expected her to match my financial contributions to family events. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. Not so fun being the family ATM, is it? I asked sweetly. You made everything more complicated. I made everything more honest. There's a difference. She hung up on me, but I didn't particularly care. I'd learned something valuable from the whole experience, that sometimes the only way to get respect is to demand it, even when demanding it feels uncomfortable or selfish. Especially then. Helen and I still argued about my life choices, but she'd started catching herself mid-criticism and pivoting to questions instead. Gary sent occasional texts asking about work, short messages that I recognized as his awkward attempts at interest. Chloe maintained a cool distance, which suited me fine. The golden child dynamic hadn't disappeared entirely, but it had shifted into something more balanced. I wasn't the family disappointment anymore, or at least not exclusively. I was the successful daughter who'd drawn a line and refused to cross back over it, the one who'd turned her exclusion into leverage and come out ahead. Sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate or dramatic. Sometimes it's just refusing to fund your own mistreatment and watching everything unravel without your support holding it together. Sometimes it's making people say out loud what they've always expected you to know silently, that you matter. That your choices are valid. That you deserve basic respect and acknowledgement. I kept the venue receipt in my files, a reminder of what $14,000 of boundaries looked like. Worth every penny. These days, when my phone buzzes with family drama, I respond on my own timeline and terms. Chloe can't guilt-trip me into spontaneous babysitting. Helen can't weaponize disappointment to manipulate my schedule. Gary can't use silent judgment to make me question my decisions. They still try occasionally. Old habits die hard, but I've got my boundaries clearly marked now, reinforced with consequences they know I'm willing to enforce. The retirement party wasn't just about Helen's career ending. It was about my willingness to be treated poorly ending right alongside it. Best $14,000 I ever spent. Honestly, you can't put a price on self-respect, but apparently, you can use it as leverage when necessary. My family learned that lesson the hard way. Have you ever found that the most important lessons in life come with the steepest price tag?